it's Megan and Jace. We're from Oma's Applesauce, and we're out at the back of the Hunter Valley today. We are filming another story for Opal's Cuppa Q&A series.
Yeah, we're going to go and have a chat with Lynelle, who's got a really sweet story to share with us about how her parents moved into care together, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Hey, Lynelle.
Ah!
Good, how are you? I'm Jason, this is Megan. You brought some cake as well.
So Lynelle, thank you so much for having us in your home. We'd love to chat about your experience with Mum and Dad and moving into Rutherford Park and have a cuppa and a piece of cake and have a really nice chat about it. So could you tell us a bit about Mum and Dad? What are your parents like? Tell us about them.
Okay, they've been married for 60 years. They're born and bred. Well, they sort of grew up in Newcastle. Dad's a journalist and worked at NBN for 30 years, and Mum's a teacher. Taught kindergarten all those years, never progressed past kindergarten, is a joke in our family. She loves children, and they're very involved in the Uniting Church all their life, and family's number one for them. That's sort of family, church and their jobs. That's how some mum and dad up,
And so how did they come to be part of the Rutherford Park care community?
In COVID times, they were both struggling a little bit. They were coping together, but just. So we saw the GP for their annual checkup, and she thought it was time to escalate from the home care into more permanent care. So, Dad does have dementia, and Mum is... what's the word? Just very, she worries over everything,
So what made living independently sort of unsafe for them, or what was it about their living condition that required full-time help?
I just noticed a few things like items in the fridge that were off. That was one of the telltales for me initially. And when I went there, it was always, oh, I know you've got this to do, this to do. There was always a list of jobs which normally wasn't ever an issue. Mum started having a few falls, and Dad was becoming more withdrawn. So I sort of thought, that's not right. And depending more and more on our beautiful neighbours. They were gorgeous neighbours. So I felt that that's unfair on the neighbours and unfair on Mum and Dad.
Gradually that circle of care gets bigger and bigger and bigger, doesn't it? Yeah.
And I want them to be looked after. They've worked hard all their life, and I don't feel they needed to struggle. So, And Dad kept having these funny turns, like he'd black out and faint, and then the ambulance would come. They'd take him to John Hunter. We'd sit there came home with COVID one of the times from our visit there, and then they'd say, oh, there's nothing really that they can do. So, whereas he's still having them now in care, but it's just lovely because he's looked after. He doesn't have to go off to hospital. It's lovely.
Managed and helped.
And they feel safe, and Mum feels safe, which is most important because she needs to not be so worried when something happens to Dad.
Of course.
So you were a part of the care journey previous to moving into Rutherford Park?
Absolutely, They got home care first, just to help with the normal house duties, because we used to do that, and we used to do the grocery shopping, and we live an hour away. Myself and my daughter mainly helped. So that was becoming more and more, sort of demanding. Like you'd get rung up and I need you now, and you'd rush down there, and there wasn't really anything wrong. Yeah. So I think Mum and Dad were getting a bit lonely as well. And just every single thing, like I took over all their finances and everything. That was probably 5 years ago, which is easy to manage with everything being online. But it was more the physical things. And Mum just found it. It's funny seeing a capable woman, just the simplest of tasks became quite hard. Which was
especially your parents.
And it is. I found it quite challenging to see. Well, they both had very capable jobs, and to see them sort of just simple tasks, and you go into the fridge and there's off food, and then she brought cat food, salmon to eat, and it was the cat salmon, not the tinned salmon. That was one of the days, which was a bit sad. So I thought, oh, that's not good.
And did your GP help
Oh, she was amazing.
facilitate those conversations?
And I think too, one of our friends her parents had just gone into aged care, and she said to me, start early so they can assimilate. They go in well, they'll go in together, they get to choose where they go, not your dad's had a fall or your mum's had a fall. You have to go here because that's the only spot available.
Right,
or you have to go there because that's the only spot available. We might try and get you together. Well, Mum was adamant. If they were going together.
Right.
So
that's an interesting approach, right? Because I think a lot of people are usually in that position of being at need.
Yes.
Of I need to find somewhere now.
Yeah, it's crisis.
Whereas taking that proactive approach of planning and saying, look,
yes.
we're now heading down this path. We know it's better off doing this now than later.
Well, we started talking about it probably 12 months before. Because Mum said, I'm not going into what she called a nursing home or an old people's home. That's how she called them. I'm not going into those. And then, so we started the talking, and then Carla, the doctor of 30 years, that year she said, oh, well, they're not like they used to be, Robin. They're more like homes now. They're your home. They care for you. It's not like it used to be. It doesn't have that hospital smell. So, because that was what Mum was worried about. So
Understandably, right? It's home. You want to move to a home environment.
That's right. Whereas when my friend went to Opal at Rutherford, her dad and uncle went in, and it was just, she said, oh, it's amazing, Lynelle, go and have a look. And I went in and just went, yep, this is not an old people's home. This is...
Yeah. Did it surprise you?
It did. Yeah, it was just beautiful. And so that made the transition for me, because I could get on board because I was excited, because I was terrified of putting them into a old people's home, and just shut the door and say, well, there you go, Mum and Dad. That just terrified me.
Yeah.
Whereas I went there and thought, actually, it didn't have a smell. It looked like they had it looked like home.
What were some of the things that were surprising for you when you went through? If you can kind of take yourself back to that first tour, what were things that stood out?
The staff.
Right.
At the front desk, Donna was just beautiful. I went, wow, that's so nice. They had nice big comfy chairs that just looked like a lounge room chair rather than just... And then there was a nice cafe, and I went, oh, wow, Mum and Dad can have visitors. And that sort of went in. That was the first part. And then I went into this little office, and Tracy sat me down and talked to me through everything, and I went, oh, actually, it's just beautiful, ensuite and kitchenette and...
Oh, even a kitchenette. Oh, wow.
It's beautiful. Yeah, so we're lucky. But that's because that's designed for couples.
Yeah.
So it suited them, even down to the bed, because they were in 2 single beds, and Mum just said, I've not slept away from your father for 60 years. I'm not staying here. And within 2 days, Tracy had organised. They'd got the new beds, got the new linen. They joined together. And even just that.
Just made it happen.
They made it happen, yes.
How do you find the team respond to the changing levels of care that your parents need?
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, yeah. I like the fact that they always ring me. They say, we're just going to do this with your Mum and Dad. Are you happy with that? We think that's the best option. And I just, great, whatever. So then I can then go in and tell Mum and Dad, which makes it easier, because sometimes if it's a bit too much, whereas I'll just go in and say, oh, they've had to separate your beds. Yeah. It's only because, see how Dad's got to sleep with his up now because they're worried about his lungs. Yeah. So I said, but once he's okay, I'll put them back together. So I think then Mum go, oh, okay. So she was happy.
And it's the same story. It's just consistent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they tell me what's happening.
Yeah.
Because Mum and Dad do, I'm sure, like most elderly people, get a bit mixed up. So I think it's important that they do communicate directly with the family. Yeah. So we hear the story rather than sometimes it can be a little bit distorted if you hear it from Mum. Yeah.
And so once they did move in, how did they adjust to their new home, and how did they go?
Apparently Mum was textbook case, very angry, didn't like it, very annoyed. She doesn't need to be here. And Tracy said, that's normal, Lynelle. And she was really angry with me. But by the end of the 2 weeks, she was, oh, actually, there's some people to talk to. And she met someone down the hall, and she found someone at the lunch table, and because Mum was missing the social thing at home, because particularly with COVID, I'm sure Mum's very social, so she enjoyed in that. And Dad if Dad was here now, I just love it. The staff are just so lovely. They just look after me. That's what Dad says all the time. Yeah, so we were lucky. We've had a good experience.
How's that changed you?
Much better. Oh, I'm so much happier. Whereas initially, because it's a big thing putting your parents into what Mum calls an old people's home, and that's, I think, what they were thinking, and that's the image that I had in my head, like what my grandma was in, an old people's home, but this isn't. And like Mum walks in the door when I drop her off on a Wednesday, oh, hi Donna, and just off she goes, like, and hi Emma in the kitchen, and like everybody knows everybody, so it's nice,
That kind of socialisation, I guess, is one of the things that's most crippling in our beloved, our elderly as they age. It's just our worlds become smaller when we need that socialisation to still maintain a degree of purpose and agency and things like that.
Yeah, and I notice the staff there have, because Mum likes to busy herself, she likes to always be involved because that's just been her whole life, whereas they've worked that out now. So when they had their Christmas function, oh, Robin, you come and help me fold the serviettes and you come and help me set the table. And so then Mum feels valued and important.
So I think you mentioned too a walkie-talkie group.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
Mum, retired teacher, as I said, and there's 8 teachers that went to Teachers College together. They're still together, and they used to walk every Tuesday. Oh, and then now since Mum's been up here, they'll come up here, the staff do special morning teas, they bring out the tea in the coffee cups because, Mum doesn't like to drink out of a paper cup. So they get all the tea out and it's just beautiful. And then they go up to Mum's room because it's big enough, and they make sure there's enough chairs and they all sit in the veranda, out in the veranda and in the sort of lounge area, because that's why it's just like, as I said, it's their home,
So Lynelle, you mentioned before that the team are really intuitive in understanding what kind of care is needed. Can you give me some examples of that?
I guess the newspaper, it was supposed to get delivered to the home, and they've had all sorts of issues with them delivering at the news agency. So Tracy rings me and says, look, I've really got to get it just sorted. Your dad, obviously, being a journalist, he wrote the news for 30 years. He really needs, I can't do any more. I've tried and tried and tried. Can you take over? So, but I thought she identified that Dad really needed the newspaper, really wanted it, but she was just hitting brick walls.
Yeah.
Do you feel the response from those, intuitive actions? Do you feel the response from your mum and dad? Do you see how that...
Yeah, Dad particularly. As I said, Mum's losing the filter a bit, so she's fairly inwardly focused at the moment, whereas Dad still, even though he's got the dementia, he notices. He sits back. He's always been sit back and just notice, and he'll always say to me, oh, love, they're so nice. I'm so glad we've moved here. And he'll just say it nice and quietly. Or Terence is there's one of the men in the nurses, Terence is his name, and he and Dad have a really good banter, and it's just, I think that's really important because it's just like Barry at home, their neighbour. Barry would always come down and have a chat to Dad, where Terence comes in. Every morning he's there 5 days a week. And he knows that, your mother likes to have, she doesn't, she likes to have a cup rather than a paper. So Terence makes sure that we get a cup, not a paper thing, or, just little things like that. And, so Dad notices that well and truly, So, and just the washing, and because obviously they've got to put it in extreme heat, whereas Mum was mortified, her bras were coming. So it's just simple, we've just got the washing little liquid and she'll just wash them and and just hangs them up in the shower. So just little things like that. Whereas Terence, he'll make a joke of it rather than saying, oh, she's a pest. It's, got your bras out, Robin? Because he takes the washing downstairs. So things like that, which I think is important for aged care, and I think it's important for their staff because they've got to enjoy their job.
Well, it creates the story of everyone, doesn't it?
Everyone. I'm sure there'll be, because I can only speak of Mum and Dad, but I'm sure going down the hallway, every one of the residents has got their idiosyncrasies. So that, Terence will have his story with the next lady and the next man. So I think it's, and it's nice to see them, joking around.
So the team are obviously quite beautiful. You trust the team.
I do.
Yeah. I got told you sent them, or you wrote them a little poem?
I did for Christmas, yes, I did, because I just couldn't think of a way to thank them, and there was so many of them. And I spoke to Wendy, the activities, and just said who's the real main carers for Mum and Dad, so I could sort of specifically mention their names, and they absolutely loved it. So it was just, Mum cried because when she read it, and she was saying it's because she's a teacher I took after them, and Dad saying no because he's a journalist. That's how I've become so eloquent with my speaking, and I just laughed, but putting pen to paper. But I really enjoyed writing that because I thought that was just a way I could say thank you for helping our family through the transition. And we sort of got to our first Christmas and survived it, and really enjoying it now. So I just thought that was the best way, and they all loved it, which was nice.
Well, we might have touched on it already, but are there any sort of, I guess, words of advice or words of strength that you would tell somebody else going through this similar journey? I know we've sort of said start early, but is there anything else
Start
emotionally?
early, start early. Keep copies of all your paperwork. Definitely do that. So you have to learn a lot of patience, and also you've also still got to keep mum and dad, because you put your name down, which we did, and you get told it could be a day, it could be a month, it could be a year. You don't know when the spot becomes available. And it's just that we were lucky because the spot did become available in about 8 weeks, so we were quite fortunate. So initially it was like, oh gosh, we've got to sell the house, do everything, but it worked out well because there wasn't that 12 months of lingering thinking, oh, are we going into, is it ever happening?
Do we do this now?
So I would hope for most people that you don't want it to become from a hospital straight in because that's too rushed. But it's nice to have your name down. And then also we started going through things at home and saying, should we sell this? Should we give it to a family member? You can just start sorting at home and going through clothes and I guess just all of that. It's good just to prepare early rather than rush. And I think too because you feel so responsible because it's your parents, it's their money.
And you're making all these decisions.
Or you're making all these decisions on their behalf that you'll just really want to make sure.
And probably one of the most important decisions you need to make on their behalf in their life.
It
like
is.
they've made all your decisions as you're growing up, and now it's you, isn't it? Yeah, you're reverse parenting.
It is. That's what I initially, because I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to, and just everything now there's just so dependent. Oh, what do you think? Oh, like something will happen. Oh, I'll just ring my daughter. I'll just ring my daughter. Like it's just the complete reverse now, which is, I guess it's good now because whilst you're responsible, which you still are, but their basic care now is taken care of, and they're looked after and they're happy and they're settled, and probably only took about 2 months, I think, for them to be settled in, and then the staff sort of got to know them and they started to do different activities because Mum joined the knitting group because she loves knitting, and when she found out that you could go, but she's not doing bingo because she's not old enough. She's not doing bingo. That's for the old people.
I love a bit of bingo.
Oh, that's what I thought. I said, go down, Mum. She said, oh, I'm not doing bingo. But they laugh. Oh, no, we won't ask your Mum to come to bingo.
They know now.
So that's for old people.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, Lynelle. Like the journey that you've been on is such a valid one for so many people to hear, like especially how you were saying, thinking about these things a little bit earlier and being a little bit more proactive, kind but proactive.
Plant the seed early so they've got time to adjust. Because I don't imagine anyone would say, I want to go into care because you're handing over your sort of life really. But go and have a look, find out what the care's like. And,
sounds like you did it in a way that was respectful to their mentality, and it's really paid off for you.
Yeah, very, very lucky. We are.